Hey, good evening, everybody. Welcome to Mr. Joynt Live. This is our fourth episode of Conspiracies and Cold Beverages with Mr. Joynt. Tonight we are discussing the UFO phenomenon. It's something I'm excited about. I love the history of it. I love all the stuff that's come out. Mr. Joynt knows a little bit about it. He's not so much a UFO geek as I am, but he's got some interesting stuff to say about it. But before we get into the meat on the bone, we got to go over a few things first. And I promise you the worst part of this show will be over. Make sure you subscribe and follow us on YouTube, just so you get notifications. That way, we try to be here every Friday night at 8 p.m. Last week, we had a power outage, and by the time I got the generator hooked up and the internet back up and running and the power back up and running, it was just too late, so we just figured we'd cancel it. But we do try to be here every Friday night at 8 p.m. unless, some act of God. And then in order to support the show, so we can use more platforms and stuff like that, get Mr. Joynt better technology, we use Cash App, and we have a new promo code. It's right there on the bottom of the screen. You get a free $5 for signing up. Now, again, here's $5. That's what it looks like. If you don't need it, give it to Mr. Joynt. Tonight we're running a coffee special, so you can buy him a cup of coffee through Cash App, and the dollar sign our Joynt right there at the bottom of the screen. And tonight it's just $5 a cup of coffee. Now, if you go to Starbucks, you can't even get a cup of coffee for $5. But he does like to have a cup every once in a while. And he was eating. We were running a little late. He is here tonight. The worst part of the show is over. So we'll welcome Mr. Joynt. How you doing, bud?
Hey, buddy. All right. Thank you. All right.
How was dinner?
Dinner was great. Thank you. It was right near where you used to work, 18th, just south of Jack's. It's what used to be something else. Sorry, I'm trying to find out which way to get oriented. You can see I had a little trouble at dinner. Anyway, yeah, it's called Legends. It has probably.
I think I've heard of it.
Yeah, and it's just south of Jack's on 18th, where Al, your old boss, he manages both of them now. He's kind of in charge of both of the Jack's hamburgers that all of you would remember if you went to Westminster. The one on the South Federal is where all the WA kids used to go sneak out at lunch and smoke cigarettes in the parking lot. But anyway,
yeah. We did a lot of things in that parking lot.
I was told that. I never saw it, actually. But go ahead.
That's okay.
That's where we were. We were right near the northern Jack's. Anyway.
What'd you get?
Wings. I'm trying to do low carb. Sorry. But that's just the fact of life at my age. I've got to watch all that stuff, numbers and all that, keep track of it. Doing pretty good, though. Can't complain. So,
how you been feeling?
Oh, yeah, fine. I did have COVID. I tested positive for it late July, early August, and didn't really have anything major. Low, 97.1 temperature, but I probably broke a fever once, maybe. Rundown. Other than that, I was.
Watch what you say, because we got put in YouTube timeout.
Oh, really?
During our Buck versus Bell show, which was episode 2, they put they put an age restriction. Thing on it, and then I had to email them and just kind of say, hey, what's going on? Why is this on there? It's not age restrictive. Some people's kids watch it, and I guess they watched the video and they were like, okay, yeah, there's nothing really on here. We didn't say anything wrong. You were just telling them about your experience. So, but I think it's just algorithms and stuff like that. When it brings it up, they just automatically flag it. So,
well, with COVID, I was over it pretty quickly, and our family, everybody that I know of, I don't know about you, or Jeffrey, but Jeffrey's in-laws have had it. I mean, I think it's something to talk about, and but I survived it. I quarantined, went back to school a day late, just to make sure. Department of Health called. I answered all their questions, and I even thanked them for calling because they kind of walked me through where I was. And probably the Chicago O'Hare Airport is where I may have caught it on my way to Iowa. I'm not sure this summer. But anyway, yeah, here I am. And back at school, back teaching AP psychology, regular psychology. I don't have any history this year. It's all psychology. But yeah, UFOs. Just want to say one thing. I've never seen a UFO that, to my knowledge. I mean, I saw some stuff in Detroit. I saw lights. When I would look out my backyard, it would face south over the city of Detroit. And I did see lights, but I think it was gunfire. So whatever. That was growing up in the 60s. Sorry. That's probably a cheap Detroit joke, but I never saw one. Well, the other day, I have to be honest, my wife and I were doing laundry. I mean, we're just trying to get stuff done, and we have a granddaughter that visits here now. She's 14 months, and two granddaughters now. Wow. Katie, who I love dearly and hope to see again soon, and then Hallie, Julia's little girl. But anyway, so we were folding laundry, and the only experience I have to say, my wife threw something at me, and I don't know what it was. So it was an unidentified flying object.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's my only experience, but go ahead.
Well, I think they're called unidentified aerial phenomenon now.
Okay. All right.
And
mine was unidentified underwear, but it's just a brief contribution.
Ba-doom boom.
Yeah. Okay. That'll get a $5 cup of coffee. Whoops. Here she is.
Hi.
Oh, there she is. Okay.
I didn't throw anything at him.
Okay. She'll be back later to tell us a UFO story. In fact, really, you got to hear this one. Lisa, come here. Come on. Tell them the Iowa UFO story. Go.
Well, I was about 8, and my brother came home from town, and it's only 4 miles. And there was like a red cigar shaped, I don't know if it's cigar, they didn't wake me up.
Oblong.
Yeah. Glowing red. Followed him all the way from town, which is only 4 miles. Came out to the farm, was freaked out. Got mom and dad, Doug and Gary all up. They all went outside and saw it. And they watched it for a long time. It was over our neighbors for quite a few minutes.
The Bachman family.
Mm-hmm. It was over the Bachman house. And then they all watched it, and then it moved on.
Wow. So a eyewitness right here, a live eyewitness.
Well, I was in bed. I was about 8, and I was furious that they did not get me up. Yeah. So it was all the talk for several days in the house, and I'm like, why didn't you wake me up? So I was the little girl. So they didn't let me. They told me about it, but they didn't wake me up. So
that's 5 miles south of the Minnesota-Iowa border.
Yeah.
Yep. And it's 100 miles from a landing strip in the Loess Hills, which is a series of rolling hills that borders, Iowa and South Dakota, Nebraska. Okay. And there's a landing strip there. I've talked to people
that
have seen.
Landing strip?
Well, I don't know. That's what's his name said, Dick McLean. It's we don't know, but there's a tower there that you have to go through an entrance thing. If you want to ride your motorcycle around there, they won't let you. So that's Loess Hills.
All right.
Yeah.
That's
so
my story.
That's her story.
Thank you, Lisa.
Sure.
Yep. Okay. Wow.
Yeah.
I
remember seeing one when we were at Canada House late one night. Uncle Robbie and I were in the swimming pool, and all the lights were out, and it flew. It was going from west to east, so it was going out towards the ocean. And it was just a green dot in the sky. And at first we thought it was a satellite, but then it made this kind of circle and went back towards the west, and then it just zipped away, and that was it. And then I remember the next day on the news, like WSVN 7 or whatever, they were doing they basically briefly mentioned it, because I guess there were several eyewitnesses that saw, a green dot over Fort Lauderdale, over Pompano.
Hillsborough Inlet, to be exact. That's
Hillsborough or whatever. And so I mean, it was years ago. I think I was a teenager, was a young kid, and but it was very interesting. But yeah, this topic has always kind of fascinated me. It goes back a long time. I mean, and if we kind of want to get into the meat here, you're a history guy, so I've always kind of looked, not just U.S. history, but obviously we'll get into that too with the UFO phenomenon, but also if you look back through the Bible,
Yes.
if you go all the way back to Genesis,
Yes.
if you want to go, the creation of the earth and all that, there was some interesting things that were happening in the book of Genesis. Men were living very long lives. This is all pre-flood. And then there's this story of the ancient or the fallen angels. Okay. So the angels were coming down from heaven. All right. These were the fallen angels, and they were, taking on wives, and they were, copulating and then producing this giant race of men called the Nephilim.
We're gonna be put on the bad list again by YouTube, but go ahead. All right.
Why?
Okay. No, go
ahead. We're allowed to talk about this.
I know. Go ahead. Sorry.
Let me fix this. So, anyways, so Genesis 6 talks about the Nephilim. It's very brief mentioning, and there's some discrepancies between scholars, biblical scholars, on who the Nephilim actually were, or were these actual angels that were producing these half mortal, half immortal, humans. And some of them say that it was from the line of Seth, which was the holier line, and then Cain was the unholy line, and so that the men of Seth were being promiscuous with the line of Cain, which was the bad line, right? The bad bloodline from Adam and Eve. But the reason why I want to talk about the Nephilim and just bring it up is because they were around for a while. Because if you believe that these were fallen angels, okay, so these were the sons of God, okay, and creating this super race of humans that lived, even longer than these, the Methuselahs and the Lamechs and all those ancient men, who were living, hundreds of years.
Pre-flood. Make that.
Yeah, point. This is all pre-flood, pre-Noah. Okay. And then what was happening is the Bible talks about men becoming very wicked. Okay, well, what was making them wicked? Well, they were using technology, so they weren't living. They weren't taking care of the earth, right? They were making weapons out of metals. They were being taught sorcery, which is kind of more like drugs. And so if you read, and I got to put on my glasses here, I apologize.
All right.
But when you read, and again, I use, this is Wikipedia, but Wikipedia, it kind of brings in all this stuff. They talk about many different facets. So these were the giants, right? The Epic of Gilgamesh. Gilgamesh was a half mortal, half immortal. His dad was a god, one of these fallen angels. His mom was a human, a regular human.
Yeah.
And so these were the men of renown. That's what the Bible says, the men of renown. And so if you take the fallen angel part of it, that these were beings from heaven, okay, then yeah, they're going to have technology. They're going to know things that most people don't. If we think pre-flood people were all Stone Age people, which I don't think they were. I think they were, there was this great kind of pre-flood civilization. And with the problem with our show is it's 45 minutes to an hour long, so we can't get into too many branches of this story. But they survived. Multiple books says that 10% of the Nephilim, these giants, survived the flood.
Okay.
And they were forced to go underground to survive in certain areas. Okay. And then let me get off this page here real quick.
So you're going to get some objections from those that hold to traditional Christian tradition, you know, but that's all right. It's a book, and if they got evidence,
well, hey, you know,
sure.
Again, these are all theories. I'm not saying I believe this.
We're out on the frontier here. We really are, and I think everybody realizes
the reason why I bring in the Nephilim is because, okay, so they were around, they had technology, they had knowledge, they you know, they were able to move stones that were millions of pounds. Okay, if you look at some of these ancient structures, they're very, very old. And the temples that are built on top of them, if you go to Lebanon, okay, there's the temple of Jupiter, which is an ancient Roman temple, but underneath that is the million-pound stones. It's called the trilithon. Okay. And there's no machinery, there's no technology that to this day that can move these stones. So, you know, obviously they knew something, or maybe there is technology, we just don't know about it. And we'll get into that a little bit later when we talk about Nikola Tesla and everything he was able to do. But to just kind of get through this baseline here of, you know, this is one theory of what we are seeing today, because the UFO phenomenon isn't something that just started happening in the, you know, World War II or even a little bit before that. This has been going on for a long time. We have ancient literature, paintings with UFOs in the background. And I wanted to talk a little bit about Enoch and Elijah, because these two men escaped death. They were taken away by God. Enoch was taken away on a chariot of fire. Okay. And Elijah, or Elisha, I forget which one it was taken away in a whirlwind. Okay. And he was with Elisha, or I think so. It was Elijah. And then the whirlwind took him away, and Elisha kept, you know, they were prophets. So Enoch is mentioned in the Bible a few times, not a whole lot. There is a book of Enoch, which is an apocryphal book. So it's not hasn't been canonized. It wasn't put in the Bible. And if you read the Council of Nicaea, which is the Greek, the Emperor Constantine, who you know, they put together the Bible. If you read the book about the actual, you know, during the Council of Nicaea, the reason why they didn't want to put in the book of Enoch, it was because it was too long. But before the Bible was written, a lot of Christian, or, you know, a lot of these people believed in Enoch, that he was one of the main characters in these, you know, in these old stories of, you know, Genesis and stuff. So Enoch was a prophet. He could resurrect people. Okay. So I thought that was interesting. That's obviously technology there that they had, or that he had, unless it was divine, you know, it could have just been a divine, you know, something God did. And then let me go into this one. I'm just trying to get through this part of the show here real quick. This is Elijah. So he was taken up in a whirlwind. Okay. So he was removed from the earth by God in a whirlwind. Okay. Now this is in the book. It's in the book of Chronicles. And then it mentions, you know, throughout the Bible and Kings. It's all Old Testament. Okay. So remember, this is all Old Testament stuff.
Okay.
So there's some biblical references to some phenomenon that happened, right? We don't know exactly, you know. I know there's a show on History Channel called Ancient Aliens, and I've watched a few episodes. Some of their stuff is real far out there. I mean, it's just, it is out there, you know. But some of this stuff, though, in the Old Testament is intriguing to me. And then what was the one, the wheels upon wheels and wheels, right? Which
I think it's in Ezekiel.
Right.
Wheels within wheels. Yes. And what is that talking about? Come on. You know, I mean, all the circular stuff that we see, and even some of the descriptions. If I recall, when I heard this story from Lisa's brother, you know, back when he was, unfortunately, he's the one that passed away. The first time I ever heard that story, he described stuff spinning. I mean, and that's wheels within wheels when he was riding back, 5 miles south of the Minnesota border back to their farm. And I want to say this, the visibility there is incredible. If you've ever seen the movie Castaway, I know you've never been out there, but out in Iowa, western part, there's crossroads there. They're like the movie Castaway, where Tom Hanks gets out of his car at the end of the movie and he's trying to deliver the package. And I mean, there's nothing. There is nothing but cornfields. And it's like for miles, 20 or 30 miles, there's nothing.
Yeah.
And that's the way, that is that part of America where our food is grown, our ethanol is produced, and it's an incredible place to visit because, I mean, there's places there for maybe 20 or 30 miles. There's no 2-story built. Well, there's probably like farmhouses that are 2-story, but there's no, I mean, even in the towns, they kind of limit it to maybe 3 stories. So, I mean, there's no interference, there's no skyscrapers, there's nothing. And so and the visibility is incredible. You can see the Milky Way there that you can't see here. You can't see this in, where we're basically artificial lighting and destroys any ability to see natural stuff. So you're probably more likely to see things out there in that part of America that you wouldn't see in, let's say, Detroit or Fort Lauderdale or Pompano, even the lighthouse inlet there of Hillsborough Inlet. You wouldn't be able to see that stuff because there's too much light. So there's, who knows what's out there that we're missing. But go ahead. That's just my account of the Iowa story. When I heard it retold, my memory of it now. Go ahead.
Well, I just got the notification. We were going to go on Facebook Live tonight, but I got restricted. So.
Oh no.
Well, I post stuff. I post stuff about the current events and things,
okay.
and you can't say anything anymore.
No, not in a free country anymore. And that's
this is all you're allowed to talk about. You're allowed to talk about science fiction.
Yeah, sure. Jeez. I know.
Well, anyways, we'll get back on track here.
Yeah.
So pre-flood destroys humans, right? Destroys most of the earth. We get to then where we actually start getting some written text again, which is the Sumerian culture. Okay.
Yeah,
so
explain this right here. That's interesting.
Yeah. So the Sumerians believed in what was called the Anunnaki. Okay. And the Anunnaki meant from heaven to earth who came. Okay, so that's who they called their gods. And basically you could believe that they were actually beings that came down to earth and ruled these people, or they were ancients, post flood they were giants. Okay, in the Anunnaki or in the Sumerian script they were giants, and this is just an ancient stone relic from the Sumerian culture. And what's interesting about this is if you look at it closely, you see a giant on top of this platform.
Yep.
And there's a cylindrical object, kind of looks like a modern day rocket.
Looks like a Jupiter rocket. Yeah.
Yeah. It's these kids. And then if you notice right up here on top, there's two suns or 2 stars or whatever. Now we're also missing a piece here. And again, we're taking this kind of out of context. I've read some literature on this stone, and basically it's showing, some of the servants have weapons. Some of them have plants like herbs, medicine. This guy's growing, he's tending a tree. So obviously this giant, this god on top of this platform was teaching these people these things, kind of the same story of the Nephilim. The fallen angels were creating this, this race of beings called the Nephilim, and they were, populating the earth with these, the giants, and these giants had knowledge of all this stuff. And so they were teaching their people this stuff. And then here's another Sumerian.
Wow. Look at that.
This is actually a big tablet. This is just a charcoal whatever. But what is all this stuff? You
got it right. I don't that's
person on the right kind of looks like they're wearing a helmet.
Yeah, sure.
They got they're the moons and the sun is rising. They're kind of controlling that. So these are the gods. This is Enki and Enel or whatever, Enel. And then there's some kind of spaceship or satellite. I don't know.
Yeah. Who knows? Wow.
And then so Abraham was from Ur in the Bible, but Ur is translated to Sumer. So Abraham, the father of, Father Abraham, right, had many sons. So the father of the Judean, right, the father of the Jews, right, the Israelites, was from Sumeria. So he had this, this is what he learned, and then he was the father of Moses, right? I think. And then Moses was in Egypt. Okay.
It's a little further down that Moses comes in, but that's okay.
Right. But
you're on the right track.
Yeah, but this is all kind of in the same general area, right? Mesopotamia, Egypt, all this, right? So in Egypt, you have kind of the same thing going on. You got these giant gods, right? And they control the area between heaven and earth, right? And then the priests, as you can kind of see, are on like puppet strings. And they're controlling the warring of men. And then what's interesting about this picture is that you have this other group of large people that are kind of holding everything up. Now, remember, the Nephilim were cast to the underworld. Okay. And it was actually a place where of complete darkness. That's what the ancient literature that I read, that they were cast to this place of complete darkness. Now, the only places I've ever been to where it's actually considered complete darkness is caves. So we went to the caverns in Marianna, Florida, the state park, the caverns, and they actually take you to an area where they turn off the lights, and there's absolutely no light. It's 100% pitch black. You cannot see your hand in front of your face. So it is complete darkness. So that's why I thought this was interesting. You do have this race of people that, in this Egyptian picture are, underground. So anyways, I'm just trying to build us up to I know this isn't U.S. history. So then you get into King David, right? You had Goliath, right, in the Bible. Goliath was a Canaanite, right? And a lot of scholars say that, yes, he had 6 fingers and 2 rows of teeth, which is a commonality of the Nephilim, right? So, and he was, 8 to 10 feet tall.
Yeah. And that's in the Bible. That is in the Bible.
Yeah, this is in the Bible. So there is a giant. So this, what I'm trying to say is these giants lived on.
Yeah.
They made it all the way to here. Now, what happened to them?
4 feet taller than LeBron James. Sorry.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Huge people.
Yeah.
And then, obviously there were North American giants. There's a place called the Lovelock Cave. I think it's in Utah or whatever. There were giants in there. So this has been going around for a while. And then that kind of, now we're going to skip a long way and get into some more modern times, which is Nikola Tesla. Because I think Nikola Tesla kind of plays a role in some of this rediscovering this ancient technology that they had, where you could move large stones using the Earth's magnetic field. He understood gravity. He understood electromagnetic electricity or whatever. And he invented this map to multiplication, which is fascinating to me. I've never seen it before. But it basically uses the same math and mathematical laws that the pyramids used. Okay. And so if you kind of look here, when you decipher a lot of this mathematical code, you get the same dimensions of the pyramid. You can kind of almost see it in there.
Yeah, you can see that.
And and I'm going to try and zoom in a little. I don't want to go. This thing's way too complicated. If you're not good at math, you're not going to. This thing just looks like a picture, but really fascinating. And then Nikola Tesla was doing a lot of stuff with broadcasting electricity during that time. You know, he worked with Edison as an assistant for Edison, and then he quit and kind of did his own thing.
Yeah.
You know, and then that was the whole battle with the alternating current versus direct current. And
Yep.
you know, we all know, you know, that part of the history.
Sure,
Thomas Edison, Nikola Tesla.
I want to see that movie. Yeah.
Yeah, and then he wanted to broadcast electricity through the air for free.
Yeah.
It was basically, you couldn't meter it, and so Westinghouse was a Tesla financer. So Westinghouse financed Tesla, J.P. Morgan financed Edison. Okay,
Yeah.
the reason why, and then Westinghouse gave him all this money. He built this big tower, and he's like, okay, well, how do we charge people for this energy? And he's like, well, we don't. And so the project was scrapped.
Yeah.
Nikola Tesla was ruined after this. Yeah. And so.
Thank you.
And they went with wired technology so that you could meter it. You could charge people.
Okay.
But here we are.
Yeah.
To this day, 2021, and we're still, like last week, we didn't have any power, right? It's because a tree out here fell on a power line.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That technology is over 100 years old.
Yeah.
Okay. Whereas here, Tesla was inventing a wireless technology that worked.
Yeah.
It broadcasted electricity through the air, kind of like radio waves and cell phone towers. You could do the same thing with electricity. You could use the currents and the magnetic fields of the earth, and then just put a receiver on your house, and you could power your house for free, because he was able to create a huge amount of electricity using his Tesla coil, which was basically just it amplified electricity.
Yep.
So suppressed technology here. This is dating back all the way early 1900s,
and perhaps even before.
And we haven't changed it.
No, we haven't. Yeah, I know. I hear you.
Now Tesla invented a flying saucer. This is actually a patent for one, which uses anti-gravity. Now this is like 1910s, 1915.
I know we talked a little bit about this. This is the first time I ever knew this, or have ever seen this. Go ahead. Yeah.
So this is basically it uses it doesn't use any form of propulsion.
Okay.
It makes itself light by spinning electromagnetic metal with a electric current, and it uses, I think he used wood and paper and stuff like that, but it was actually able to levitate by it wasn't anti-gravity, if we think like you're just going to float away in this, you're floating around space, but it created an anti-gravity effect, meaning it made it so light that it was able to lift itself. Okay. Now then he used fan motors and things like that to push it around. But it was its own levitating. It didn't have to basically be thrust off the ground like a rocket would. Okay, you got to have rocket fuel. You have to thrust it up in the air. This was just basically creating something so light that it would lift, and then the spin. And then he actually he owns the theory of spin. So the military uses it, and bullets use it. So mortar shells, right? When you fire a mortar shell in the air, you have to spin it so it'll go higher, and then create more velocity when it falls and do more damage, right? When you throw a ball in the air, if you just throw a ball up straight up in the air, it won't go as high as if you spin it. So spinning has an effect on matter. Okay, so moving right along.
You should send that to your Uncle Tom, my brother. He'd be interested in that.
Well, he's probably listening to me going, this kid sounds like an idiot.
No.
I'm not I try to understand it as best I can.
Yeah.
But to explain it and it's like trying to, like, I can understand Spanish, like when I hear it, but to try to interpret it and then
go on to this thing right here. I know, I agree with you.
Yeah, I know you would love this. So now we're kind of we're past Tesla.
Yeah.
The Germans now have been doing they were working on a nuclear weapon before we were.
Norway. Heavy water factory. Go ahead.
Yeah. They were exploring the earth finding all sorts of, because of the cult, right? They wanted to find all the ancient relics of the biblical times.
Mm-hmm.
So they were looking for the spear. That's kind of where Indiana Jones got a lot of the inspiration.
Yeah.
Because that was an actual story. Spielberg did research and found that the Germans were looking for biblical technology. They were looking for the Ark of the Covenant, the spear.
Raiders of the Lost Ark isn't far. I mean, there is evidence of that.
Because they were trying to harness the power of God, right? If you read these stories about the Ark of the Covenant, and they would basically just hoist it up in the air, and it would kill the enemy with fire and lightning bolts.
Yeah.
And then the Israelites were able to march, and acquire. So they're looking for this stuff. So this is called
Let me throw this in.
Yeah.
The North African campaign, even the Office of Strategic Services, the forerunner of the CIA, in the early, 1940s, when we got into Africa, North Africa, they were stumped as to why the Germans were in North Africa, because they already had synthetic oil. They didn't need any of the oil in North Africa. What were they looking for? And that, I hate to say that Raiders of the Lost Ark has credibility, but, what were the Germans looking for? We know Hitler was very preoccupied with all this stuff you're talking about, and very preoccupied with the Holy Grail, biblical, whatever, the Ark of the Covenant. And so this stuff is not far off the mark. And in fact, it wasn't until the OSS actually started to consider the biblical aspect of things for Nazi Germany that they began to understand it and just realized they had to use brute force, air power, and that's what eventually won the day with basically against the Germans in North Africa, and Rommel having to be relieved of command and all that stuff. And it wasn't really his fault, because the Germans shifted tactics and they realized, all right, we're not going to be able to get to these places to get this stuff, Ark of the Covenant, 10 Commandments, whatever it is that was still over there. And that's the early papers of the Office of Strategic Services, which was the forerunner of the CIA. But go ahead.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's
yeah.
They
go ahead, talk about this. This is interesting.
Well, this is what's called a de Glock, so it meant the bell, and it was basically a
German for the glockenspiel, the bell. Sometimes they'll use it for the word clock. But go ahead.
Yeah, so they were using this technology. The Germans were experimenting with this same technology that Nikola Tesla, had come up with. Because remember, the world now was connected through the telegram, the telegraph,
mm-hmm.
right? So, and Germans had spies here in the USA, so that they were following Tesla. They were researching Tesla. You had Einstein in Germany, or Austria, right?
They were here in Delray Beach, Florida, already been documented. Germans landed in pontoon boats and other stuff off the coast of Delray Beach. Go.
Yeah. They were experimenting with this technology. So they created an anti-gravity or I don't want to say everybody calls it anti-gravity, but it's a system that doesn't use propulsion, meaning it doesn't use rocket, it doesn't use jet, it doesn't use a propeller. It's able to lift and move on its own using a spinning, molecular. They were using mercury, a metal substance that could have an electric flow through it, and spinning it at a high rate of speed to create this levitating effect.
Mm-hmm.
Now, how they were able to maneuver it, that was something that they were having trouble with.
Mm-hmm.
But they were using, they had different prototypes.
Wow.
So these are German prototypes where they would build this craft that could move, use the levitation, of the de Glock, of the bell, and then use other forms of maneuvering, either through like little spurts of rockets or air. Again, there's not a lot of literature on this stuff. A lot of this stuff is very hard to find. But these are the different shapes. These were the different prototypes. So you can kind of see a similarity between some of the old photographs, right?
Yeah. And some of the shapes that people have seen over the years, this is what they describe. This is what they describe seeing. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Germans had a flying wing, a stealth fighter.
Before we had it.
Yep. All right. A lot of our modern rocketry came from Werner von Braun, right? Yep. He was a Nazi.
Yep. Later, the head of NASA.
Yeah.
Saturn program.
And he was building rockets, the V1, right? That was the first rocket, and they were using it to bomb Europe.
And you wouldn't have had the moon program in 1969, July 21st, without Werner von Braun, who used Jewish slave labor also to wire the V1 and V2 rockets, which bombed England during World War II. At a Holocaust conference, I talked to one of those guys, a Jewish Holocaust victim who survived the Holocaust. He was up in one of Werner von Braun's rockets, wiring it for the bombing of England, basically the V2 rockets, which went up trajectory and straight down into London. So I ran into him in the 1990s. He's no longer with us, unfortunately. But Germans were on all this stuff. Yes.
Yeah, Nazi UFOs. I mean, you can look at up there.
And he told me, he was telling me stuff. He says, "You won't believe what I saw." So as a German person that would wire rockets to bomb England, the V2 rockets, there was other stuff there, and Werner von Braun was there, and then we secreted him out after World War II because the Russians were closing in, and we got all those guys and we brought them to, Melbourne, Florida, Rahway, New Jersey. I'm sorry, we're off topic here, but yeah, there it is.
No, this is part of the. This is
flying wing. That's the forerunner today of
the modern stealth bomber, the B-52.
There it is.
Yep. Which was debuted in the Iraq War, but they had it for years.
This is the Luftwaffe symbol on these things. This is not just made up. There's no Nazis. They didn't use swastikas. They used something more visible that could be seen. This is the Luftwaffe, which is the German for Air Force. This is their first prototype, very successful. In fact, the Germans, had they done more of this and gone more into jet propulsion, the end of World War II may have changed drastically because we overran their airfields and they had no place to launch their jets that they had.
Well, they ran out of jet fuel.
They ran out of jet fuel, and they ran out of space because our, the Third Army under Patton and everybody else, they were closing in so fast that the airfields were shut down. But that's another time. Go ahead.
Well, and here we go into. This is 1942.
Wow.
This is the Battle of Los Angeles.
Jeez.
So this is an actual event that happened. I think it's a German UFO.
Yeah.
They're shooting at it. They're firing at it. The Army shot over 20,000 anti-aircraft rounds up towards this. Didn't damage it. Didn't hit it.
Yeah.
And this photo was snapped. This was right over Los Angeles. The craft that you see there in the picture went back out into the ocean, back out into this Pacific Ocean. But this was in 1942. So
and as I told you before, I'm not even aware of this. I did not know this existed until you showed it.
This was an actual event. It's called the Battle of Los Angeles. You can look it up.
Yeah. Battle of the Bulge.
And of course, the military, the official story was that, get this, it was an anti-aircraft balloon. So they would put these big balloons up in the sky the planes would hit them, right? And they would put them out over the ocean. And this one got away, all right? But they shot so many flak and all those anti-aircraft shells at them that had flak. I mean, you can see them. That's what these little dots are. Those are anti-aircraft. That's the flak shells exploding.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So any one of those would have popped it. But it was thousands and thousands of rounds. It freaked everybody out in Los Angeles. They all wanted to know. There was flak actually from the shells that were falling on people's homes, people's cars.
Yeah.
I think some people got injured, but it's an amazing story. I've read a little bit about it.
It's
but
coated.
yes,
It's coated in aluminum. Flak is, and that was one of the things that messed up the radar for the Germans was aluminum, because they didn't really have that. We had it, but they didn't. Yeah, that's what that is right there. I think, pretty sure. Go ahead. Wow.
but yeah, so that takes us there, and then so now World War II's over. We had stories of Foo Fighters, right?
Yeah.
That was over the Pacific, right? There was Foo Fighters that were messing with the planes.
Yeah.
Just mysterious objects that the pilots couldn't identify. And then we get into Roswell now. So, and the reason why I wanted to bring up Werner von Braun and the rockets, because then America wins World War II. So now we got the German technology. We got the Die Glocke, right?
Yeah.
We got the flying wing.
All of it came to us. All of it came to us. The Russians.
Yeah, we got the rocket technology.
Russians at about 5%. We got 95%. We got in there first. Yes.
Yeah. So we get all this stuff, and now what happens? We build this secret base out in the Nevada desert, desert called Area 51.
Area 51. Your stepsister Jordan has been there twice. Class of 2008, Westminster. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, go for it. Yeah.
No. I mean, she's been there. It's just there's stuff going on. She didn't say much more than that. So there's stuff going on there.
Okay, yeah, and there was a crash there in 1947 in Roswell, New Mexico, on a rancher's, on his ranch. He calls it in, right? The Army comes out there and they're like, yeah, this is a crash flying saucer or whatever. It makes the newspapers, and then the Air Force says, wait a second, hold on, nope, it's just a weather balloon.
Yeah,
and they do this big old photo op and stuff like that because it came from a secret air base. No one's supposed to know about it. And so what was it? Obviously, was it now, if you go to Roswell, New Mexico today, it's all based around aliens, right? It's all aliens. It's all extraterrestrial, little green men, little grays, that type of stuff. They're going to abduct you and they're going to probe you, right? Now, I thought this was interesting, and this is kind of some psychology here. So a lot of people have this same story of they're being probed, right?
Yeah.
Well, now, could that be from when you're a baby and they take your temperature, they don't put it in your mouth, right?
No.
They don't put it in your arm. Where do they stick it?
Yeah, well, yeah.
Where do they stick the thermometer?
We don't want to get censored, but yes, that's correct.
Well, no, some psychologists or psychiatrists have said that the people who think they're being abducted are actually reliving their birth, right? They're dreaming or they're having, so the doctor's taking them out of the mother's room. Everything is bright. They can't hardly see. It's blurry. There's a bunch of tall people standing over them. Yeah. And then all of a sudden, boop, temperature's taken. Yeah. Right. And now they're being probed. I'm not discrediting these people's abduction experiences. I'm just saying that that's an interesting theory that it could be some, I have dreams and I wake up and I go run and I'll get up and be like, oh crap, I missed work. And then I'm like, wait a second, it's 3:00 in the morning, and dreams are very real.
And your stepmother's throwing stuff at me, which I can't identify. Sorry,
right. A UFO. So 5 years later, this is the first daytime photograph of UFOs, right?
All right.
Now, obviously, these aren't planes. These aren't jets.
No, and the car is probably late 40s. That's a Dodge.
This is 1952.
That's a Chevy Fleetliner, and that is a Buick. Okay, so these are older. That's a 49 Buick. Sorry, 51.
Right, so none of those are UFOs, Dad. Right?
No, they're not. They're cars.
Yeah, none of, you know everything what these are.
I'm from Detroit. I know what these are. Go ahead.
Yeah, but this is the first daytime photo of an unidentified flying object. Okay. Now they're in formation, so that right there gives me suspicion.
Yeah, right? Sure.
Anything in formation is
sure
designed to be information, and and then the modern reports we have today of the swarms, they call them, flying around these aircraft carriers and battleships out in the ocean. Those to me seem like drones, because that's how drones fly in formation. They have this swarm technology that's run by AI. We don't have time to show videos of all that, but all that technology is very fascinating. And so, but here you have this formation of brightly lit. Now, when you spin electromagnetic material, it creates colorful lights. It creates light. It creates a glowing effect. All right.
It is.
And then this is just basically the documentation of that photograph, and lists some witnesses and stuff. But yeah, it was August 1st, 1952 is when the photograph was released. It might have happened prior to that, but this was an actual event. This is one of the first documented daytime events of a unidentified flying object.
Wow.
This is the Kecksburg bell. Okay. So this was the Kecksburg. Sorry, this is Kecksburg. This happened. This was a crash that happened. The Army came in, closed the place down, and they grabbed it. And this is a replica of what people say they saw. This was the Kecksburg Incident. And this happened, I believe, in Canada.
Okay.
No, Kecksburg, Pennsylvania. So this happened in 1965.
Wow. Never heard of it. Never heard of it.
I forgot to do one thing here. There we go.
Wow, those Canadians.
Yeah, those Canadians. But the reason why I thought this was interesting, because if you notice the shape, it looks like the Glock, the bell.
The Glock, the Nazi Glock.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then, of course, people say that it was just a part of a jet, an experimental jet that they were working on, and that's why the Army had to come in and shut the place down. But this is a kind of like they call this Pennsylvania's Roswell.
Yeah.
All right. And now everybody says this was an acorn shape, and it had mysterious writing on the side, which they don't put on jets. But I just thought it was interesting that, if the U.S. military is using some of the same technology, or let's say the same structure of a UFO or of a flying saucer, the Glock is kind of like the engine, right? That's what's giving it this levitating effect. And then the maneuverability, I don't know, I'm not a physicist, so how are they maneuvering it? I don't know. But yeah, the engine could fall out, right?
Yeah.
It could fall out and crash, and then there you go. It would look something similar to that. So that I thought was interesting.
Yeah.
Everybody wants to think alien.
Yeah.
Well,
let me tell one account.
Or extraterrestrial.
Yeah. I had a friend that worked with me in Detroit in the late 1960s. I'll use his name because I don't even know if he's still around. He was older than me. Joe Bodiford, African-American security guard at Chrysler, whom I befriended when I was working my summers there at Chrysler through the auto factories and whatever. But he told me he was an Air Force guard. That's where he got his security guard experience. And that was at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base in Dayton, Ohio, because Dayton, Tennessee is where this trial took place. All the AP US people would know that. This was Dayton, Ohio, Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. He was working there as a security guard for the Air Force, because it's an Air Force base. And he drove by in a Jeep beside some of the hangars where supposedly the Roswell stuff was. And he was told, you can't go in there. Don't ever try to go in there. There's stuff in there. And we can't tell you. And I guess one day, somehow he was able to sneak away and look through the windows or something. And he saw really crazy stuff. Not people, not little green men, but he saw like aircraft, advanced stuff, and prototypes and models of stuff they were working on. And he saw what he thought. Now that he described it to me, he even drew it. I wish I had the piece of paper he drew it on. This was like 1968. And oddly enough, this was actually Okay, it was 1967 because it was during the Detroit race riots, and he was black, I'm white, and I'm probably going to give him a ride home during the riots. He says, I got to draw you this. This is what I saw through the windows. And I said, wow, it looks like not quite like that, but more compressed like the Tesla stuff. I said, man, it looks like a flying saucer. He said, yeah, that's what I saw. And that's supposedly what they got from Roswell. And it was brought to Wright-Patterson Air Force Base in Dayton, Ohio.
Yes.
That's what he told me he saw. Those are really my only stories, except for, your sister Jordan, who says she saw when she was on Guam in Area 51. She saw some of the same stuff. She tried to describe it, and I said, man, that sounds like Joe Botiford in Detroit in 1967. I've already heard this. So there's a consistency between what these people, eyewitnesses, I guess, third-hand information nevertheless, saw in, 1967, whatever this was, 2010, 2011, on Guam, Area 51, Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. The mystery continues.
Well, we all know the military and the government do things. I mean, This is a conspiracy show. We all know they do things, and there's national security issues, and the public is on a need-to-know basis, and sometimes the public doesn't need to know, right? Unless it starts happening around the world, and this is where we get into children's testimony.
Wow.
Okay, so this happened in the 70s. Okay, so as we progress here. These kids at a UK, so this is United Kingdom, at a high school in the 70s, and a similar incident happened in Zimbabwe.
Right here.
But that incident kind of gets, so it was a South African private school in Zimbabwe,
British run.
Yeah, and a craft. A craft landed in a field, in a grass field, and all the kids ran out, and they supposedly saw beings. And then a news reporter came, and obviously everything was kind of hush hush, shut down. But eventually, a news reporter was allowed to come in or a psychologist, sorry, and talk to the children because they were traumatized by it. And he made them draw pictures and all this stuff, and all their pictures were very similar. Well, then years later, the same thing happens in the United Kingdom. And then they did the same kind of work with the kids where they brought in a psychologist, they drew pictures, and all the pictures are real similar. But as you can see, this is the classic UFO saucer disc shape. Okay.
Yeah.
So as this technology advanced, they can fly now all over the world. They can go up to space. The Air Force has always wanted, that's like their holy grail, is to be able to go in and out of space, with ease. Because once you get into space, you could get to, another side of the world within minutes instead of hours.
Bezos and Elon Musk. There you go. There they are.
Yeah. Well, this is before their time.
Yeah, I know. They're kind of picking up the stuff. Wow, there it is. Rockets of the world.
Yeah, so this kind of starts with the first rocket. You got Werner von Braun blowing up Europe, okay? And then the reason why I show this is technology progresses, okay? The mechanics are somewhat the same, but the aerodynamics, the booster stages, all that stuff kind of changes. But and I kind of go. This is rockets. We think is modern technology. This is ancient technology. Okay, they've been using this now since the 30s. Okay, Werner von Braun started. So this is almost 100-year-old technology, and they're still using it because this is what the public sees, right?
Yes.
They could get large contracts, large amounts of money because it's very expensive. They can run up huge bills. It's all, they make more money by things being less efficient.
Yes.
Same thing with electricity, what Nikola Tesla was trying to do.
Yeah.
It's very inexpensive to run his technology versus wiring the whole country. Well, you need contracts for wires and telephone poles and all their buddies, they contract all this stuff out, and then you got to build a power plant and you got to have oil or coal. So all these big titans of industry get to be super rich off of something that is not efficient.
Yes.
Okay, and that's why we still use it today. So that's the example I wanted to use here. Same thing with rocket technology. Why haven't rockets changed? Why are we still using?
Yeah.
I mean, the only thing they change is the fuel. They develop different fuels, different forms of propulsion, but it's the same method. It's the same use. You would think that by now we would have a modern day, but they can't. They can't give you free energy, and they can't give you fast, quick access around the world. They want to keep things inefficient.
We've had a
efficiency doesn't cost as much.
No.
Efficiency is cheap.
Yes.
We want things to suck.
Yeah, we've had a 155 mile per hour carburetor in existence since 1977. Shell Oil Company bought the patent. You could get 155 miles to the gallon with an air carburetor. And I have the patent my brother sent me, who worked 37 years as a General Motors engineer and drove the solar truck in 1978 in Arizona. Says, we have all this stuff. And, so why don't we release it? He says, well, if you go to Alexander Solzhenitsyn's 1977 Harvard commencement address, he asked that very question. What is it? And he's a communist, or he was a communist sympathizer who had defected to the West. He said, why is it that a capitalistic society in 1977, like the United States of America, can't release this for the common good? Well, it's your right to own what
you can't sell as much gas.
No, exactly. Yeah. Well, there you go.
All
right.
You sell more gasoline if something gets 20 miles to the gallon, and then I mean, we all know why. It's money. Money's the answer to 99 out of 100 questions.
Hydrogen fusion, another show in the future. We got to talk about hydrogen fusion technology.
Yeah, the fusion reactor that they built, it created 10 quadrillion watts of energy in 1 second. They blast hydrogen fuel capsules with lasers.
Describe this right here. Go ahead. Whatever we're watching.
Well, no, I moved to this because this is the old typical flying saucer, right?
Yeah.
This is the old technology. So we saw the rockets, right? The rockets didn't change, okay? But this technology kind of changes. We see different shapes now. Whereas before in the 40s, 50s, and 60s and 70s, it was all kind of that classic UFO flying saucer shape. But now that we're getting...
Like Lisa's brothers described in probably 1968. She said she was 8 years old. She was born in 1960. So, yeah, you're right. It has evolved from 1968.
The technology evolves. These people that, say... we have the Tic Tac, right? Now that's out, which is just it has no propulsion, no nothing. It's just a oblong shape, kind of what Lisa was talking about. Okay. And it can outmaneuver, outrun. It could go into space, out of space. It could go in water, out of water, makes no noise, doesn't make a splash, doesn't break apart, can go from 80 or 3 feet above the water, which is what they measured it as, up to 80,000 feet in the air in less than a second.
Jeez.
Because when you get rid of gravity, you kind of get rid of time, right? That's kind of where Einstein and all these guys, the physicists, where you can move from point A to point B in no time at all, because there's your gravity and time kind of coexist, or the time, our perception of time, right? So obviously technology is changing. It's becoming more advanced. This is, I think, the gimbal photo where they were chasing this saucer around. This was released recently, or I would say a couple years ago. But this is one of the other famous videos. I'm not playing the video, just showing. And the reason why I brought this up is because this is a infrared camera. Okay, so if they were chasing a plane or something that had jet or some other form of technology, this area around if you want to say this is a plane, a fuselage would not be white. This is a cold environment around it. And when you spin things really fast, it does create a cooling effect. So, anyways, I thought that was interesting. The technology is advanced. So here we are at the end.
Yeah. Wow. There
what
it
do you
is.
think? Is it an alien?
I don't know. Jeez. I'd have
Is
to
this
ask
alien craft? Is this crashed alien craft that we've reversed engineered? And
I wish I'd have kept closer contact with my friends in Detroit back in the 60s and 70s when I worked there as a security guard, who were, veterans, black and white, mostly black, and they were security guards at Air Force bases, which qualified them to be security guards for Chrysler. And I got in as a fill-in just because I knew somebody, and so anyway, yeah. So I don't know what it is.
She comes in right
really fast for the Westminster people. Walt Jomini was very impressed, and probably the greatest teacher in WA's history. I'll just say that. There might be some disagreement, but I don't think.
No, give him a shout out. Yeah.
No, yeah, shout out for Walt Jomini. Great friend, highly intelligent, probably the best teacher. When Westminster's history is written, I know their 50th anniversary is coming up here next month in October. I'll be part of that. Thank you very much for inviting me, those of you that did. But he says he has doubts about the moon landing based on stuff and whether the moon landing was real. And
well, I mean,
yeah,
I've seen some stuff. I mean, it some of it looks a little a little rigged, you know.
It does. I mean, the lighting for like the
lighting, and you can see they say it's an antenna, but it looks like it's one of those cords and stuff. And the guy falls, but then he gets right back up. And
it's crazy.
It's like he's being pulled up. I mean,
and the dust. If you believe in the evolutionary theory, the dust on the moon should be about 6 feet thick. It's about that thick. So I'm sorry for all of you Westminster graduates.
Yeah, no, I mean,
all of you Westminster
the moon landing next week.
Evolution, and you haven't been swayed. Explain to me the dust layers on the moon only being this thick, which would be about 6,000 or 7,000 years, instead of 5 or 6 feet thick, which is what it should be if it's been the millions of years. But Walt was the first ones to point that out to me, and I don't think he's teaching anymore at WA or Broward, where he and I both were. I'm trying to think of some other stories I had real quick about UFOs. I don't have many. One of the criticisms about UFO sightings is that they usually take place in remote areas. And my defense of that is that those are the areas that don't have artificial lighting, like where my wife grew up. They would see stuff.
And
you ever go out there? You ever go out there? Forget South Florida. Forget any urban area you go. You got to go out west, where there's no artificial lighting. You see the Milky Way. You see shooting stars. You see weird stuff. And
you also don't have a lot of the smog and the air pollution, so the air is clear.
No, it's
like
incredible.
when I go to Marianna, whenever there's we want to see the Perseid meteor shower and stuff like that, we watch we go to Marianna and watch it because it's cleaner air, it's clearer.
Yep.
There's less light. There's there's nothing out there. I mean, it's woods.
Yeah.
And it's a little spooky. You think this guy's going to come get you?
Sure. No, you're right. So there we go.
There we go. So final thoughts. Military tech, ancient technology. Maybe some ancient civilization is still around, and they're flying these things around, watching us. Could be military tech. I don't know. It's a big universe out there. Who knows? I think most civilizations. Let me get that off your face, Dad.
Well, no, that's okay.
Most civilizations, I would think, don't make it to last 1 million years. I think eventually they'll kill each other off, or they'll destroy their own planet before they actually reach.
It's your stepmother throwing laundry at me, and I can't identify it.
Yeah, there you go.
There you go. That's it.
All right.
Man.
Hey, we got some donations to the show
Okay.
tonight. I would like to give a shout out to Monik Simidian. Bought you 2 cups of coffee.
I will try to bring her sociogram in all my years of teaching. I'm in my 48th year. And Monik, I will shout out to you. That's one of the most advanced things I've ever had. I will try to bring it next week. I did find it and show the whole world what you did. It was really incredible. Back in, what was it, 1994, 93? That stuff. And I still use it. I still show it. And I'm showing it, all the kids at Boca Raton High School. They don't know what it is. I have to explain it to them when we're in an AP Psych. But thank you, Monik. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you, Monik. What a bargain. What a bargain.
Yeah, I don't know.
Says Mr. Joynt Live, $5.
Yeah.
What a bargain.
There's some Boca Raton High School kids that are now logging into this supposedly as well. I don't know. I heard. I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah. Well, they may not do a live, but what I notice is not a lot of people join in on live show.
No.
Like I said, I was trying to get us on Facebook Live so that your students could watch, enjoy, relive their high school days minus the pregnancy test. But
Mark
Zuckerberg. I got put in Facebook timeout.
Yeah, Zuckerberg will have no use for that. Sorry. Nor will the Dorsey guy from Twitter.
Oh, well. I don't care.
I don't have a.
You know what it does? It helps me not argue with people because I get into arguments with people, and then they're probably the ones that report me. So
I had a girl from Boca ask me, "Why is it you don't have a Facebook account?" I told her, I said, "Because I don't have any friends."
Yeah.
All right.
There you go. All right. Diamond in the Muff says, "Mr. Joynt cooler than Eskimo shit stuff."
Oh, jeez.
Mr. Joynt is cooler than Eskimo poop.
Yeah, wow.
Antifa teacher says, "Is your high school hiring?"
Yeah, he's out of a job.
Yeah.
No, we got enough liberals in our world. No, we don't need you to. Thank you very much. Got some great conservatives, great teachers at Boca High. Seriously, great place. Love being there. I did retire. I'm in the 5-year drop program. So 5 years from now, I have to step out of the limelight, but that's 5 years from now. So meanwhile, okay, having fun. And I thank everybody.
Yeah, we went a little over tonight, but it's just so much information. I mean, you can't to try to explain it all in under an hour. To go through the past, to everything that went on to the present. It's just.
And you had stuff that I've never seen before. And Alex Jones, I know Infowars will probably get shut out.
Yeah, we'll be put on YouTube time now.
We'll be on there forever. But he talks about the Nazis' confrontations with what they thought were extraterrestrials or whatever in 44 and 45.
Well, they were going to the Antarctica a lot. And the Antarctica, you got to remember, Antarctica was a lush forest at one point. And it was in a different area because the North and South poles change over time. And so this was a lush that, they say there's pyramids there. There's underground areas. There's isothermal areas where kind of like Iceland, where it may be frozen on top, but under the ground, it's a habitable area. So, if the Germans were going to Antarctica, they're using their U-boats, they're crushing through the ice, they're going under there, they're able to reach other places. Yeah, like I said, the Nephilim were forced underground. They had technology or fallen angels or whatever. I've heard, theories that these are demons. Okay, that the Nazis.
That's what Alex Jones.
Yeah, that they're demons, and the fallen angels were sent to Earth to lead men astray until the final judgment. That's in the Bible. So, we could be dealing with a demonic entity. So, but we kind of got to leave it there, Dad. We're way over, but hey, who knows?
Yeah.
So
what's next?
All right,
week?
man.
Next week.
We could do moon landing if you want. That kind of ties in.
Geez, you got to go Walt Jomini for that.
Yeah, I don't know much about it. I'd have to read up on it. I was thinking, so because of I kind of wanted to wait for the Afghanistan stuff to kind of take a back seat.
Wow.
But I would like to maybe talk about what we knew prior to Pearl Harbor, which led us into World War II.
Okay.
What we knew prior to Gulf of Tonkin, right, which led us into the Vietnam War.
I got this stuff ready to go.
Yeah, and then what happened right before 9/11, which led us into Afghanistan.
You're going to be on the bad list.
So
Facebook's going to abolish.
But we knew something was going on before each of these events happened to get us into these conflicts.
Yeah.
So, and then, but I kind of wanted to wait for the, because the servicemen, God bless them. Thank you for your service to our soldiers and the families, these Gold Star families. Now, unfortunately, there's 13 more of them. But I kind of wanted to wait for all that to kind of settle down before we started.
I have a Boca Raton cousin whose second cousin was one of the 13 killed.
Yeah, wow.
That's what hit our school like a ton of bricks. She doesn't want that to be known, but that's what's.
Yeah, and like I said, I'm sensitive to all this stuff, and so I wanted to give everybody a little due respect. We'll joke around with UFOs and that, and then, but I would like to go into that next week. Let's do Pearl Harbor, Gulf of Tonkin, and 9/11.
And there are WA alumnus. And I keep in contact with them. One in particular lives near me, who fought in Afghanistan, and they're devastated. They're devastated.
Well, and I've worked with, working in restaurants. They come out, they work and they do whatever. They do construction. Some of them go into culinary, and so I've worked with a few guys that were in Afghanistan.
Yeah,
and I've worked with people in Iraq. I worked with a guy in Vietnam. I mean. And it was always, war is hell. That's what they say.
War go to Arlington. If you doubt what I'm saying or what you're saying, go to Arlington and walk those areas of the cemetery. There's so many people there now. The Afghanistan part takes up about maybe a third of a mile to the entrance. That's how many guys died there, and we walked away. Sorry, another topic, another time.
Yeah, we'll get to all that.
Yep.
Thank you, Dad.
Thank you. Love you, son.
Love you too.
Great. A lot of stuff I didn't know. The Tesla stuff, I didn't know that. Wow.
Yeah. Well, and then before we ended, there's these generators that produce 22,000 watts, and they use magnets. That's it. It's magnets.
I want that for the next hurricane.
The Russians built a huge one, and it actually levitates as it's crazy. But we gotta plug in our stuff. We can't just get it free from the air.
Okay, so get me one of those generators, and we're good.
All right, Dad.
All right, love you.
All right, love you too.
See you.
Oh, I cut him off, but all right. Well, thank you everybody for joining. Like you heard us, next week we'll get into some more conspiracies. Thanks for watching. Maybe next week I'll be out of Facebook jail, but thank you everybody. Have a good night. See you next week.